we've seen JP shoot before this morning in this team match, and we were saying about how he made it look so easy, and I think that's yeah, maybe telling of what we're gonna see right now.
So time for the second semi-final of the men's compound competition. Let's go down to meet the athletes.
On target number 1, representing France, Philippe Boulch. On target number 2, representing United States of America, Lutz. The line judge for this match is César.
Well, here we go for this semi-final. Philippe Boulch, JP as he's known on the circuit, from France, the world number 3, takes on the American sensation, Lutz. Time to find out who is going to face Miguel Becerra in the gold medal match and who will face Mike Schlosser in the bronze medal match. JP Boulch to get this semi-final underway.
Yes.
So both these archers have been out on the field before today, so they have had a taste of what it's like here. But now it's raining, and it wasn't when they were shooting, I think, or at least not as much. So the circumstances have changed a little. It's a different session. It was a morning session, now it's an afternoon session. The light might be different. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they have an advantage over the rest of the field in this case.
So a 29 set, which is gettable by Lutz.
Yep.
Yep, indeed. 29 a piece and nothing between them. Dropping a 9 in the first end is not too big a problem, especially if your opponent does it as well.
I was just going to say, it all depends on what the opponent does, and dropping a9 is never really that big of an issue unless you're shooting against somebody who you know is going to shoot a 150, but that's not always the case. And I think shooting a 9 in this case is not that bad, especially if you're Jimmy Lutz right now. In his mixed team, he kind of fell apart a bit. He shot not so great of a match. So I think
he hit a 7, didn't he?
He did hit a 7. It was right high, if I remember correctly. So I think he'll just be looking to shoot a solid match, just keep his shot composed and calm. So if he can just shoot 29s and keep hitting 10s, I think he'll be satisfied.
Boulch looking very happy with himself, though, especially when he came on to the field of play. Very relaxed, big smile on his face as he was being introduced. Seeing him rise through the rankings this season, up to number 3 in the world. And Chef Annenberg said earlier on, he makes that bow, which is exactly the same size as the one that Lutz is using, look like a child's toy. Start of the second end here, all square between Boulch and Lutz.
Yes. Yes.
I think what might be helping James is that he has a bit more time on his hands now. In a mixed team match, you get 80 seconds for 4 arrows, which translates to 20 seconds per arrow. Here you also get 20 seconds per arrow, but in between those 20 seconds, ooh, sorry, I I had a bit of reaction there.
No, not at all, because that is a big miss. We'll come back to that.
Yeah. So rather than having 20 seconds per arrow, you have 20 seconds, and then you have the time that the other person is shooting to, you know, put the arrow on your bow and prepare for your shot. So you have a little bit more breathing room. JP looks a bit surprised, but there was I could see from here that he was flinching a bit. So he didn't shoot that great of a shot. So I hope he has the clearness of mind to recognize that himself and to accept the fact that he shot that shot, so that he can go on with the rest of the match.
Let's just dissect that a little bit more. So there was a big movement in at full draw you're talking about.
Yeah. So he was at full draw. At a compound, with the compound you have a wall that you pull against, and he came loose from that wall. So he wasn't pulling against the wall hard enough. And you could see that there was a bit of motion before the release went off.
I'm going to ask a dumb question here, Chef. You're used to those from me. What is that? A lapse in concentration, or is that a physical thing?
It can be both. I don't really have a feel for how cold they might be on the field there. With the rain going down on them, running down off them, they might just get cold, and yeah, colder muscles will have more tremor. So that might be the case, or just like you said, a lapse in concentration.
Well, it's huge. Whatever way you look at it, dropping a 9 is not too big a deal, but putting it in the 6, it means there's a 4-point difference between the pair of these athletes. Boulch has a mountain to climb here in the Andes.
And a 6 from JP Boulch is not really what Nico Wiener is looking for, is he?
Had a smile on his face as we saw him in the break there. That's 1 back for Boulch. Yeah, the last thing that Wiener wants is a Lutz Vichera final, but that is looking more and more likely now.
Yep, there you go.
If JP Boulch manages to pull this off, it would be the comeback of this tournament, I think. But not with the way that James Lutz is shooting right now. It seems like he's found his groove, he's found his mojo, and he is shooting quite well.
But he did drop a 9 there. And Boulch didn't drop any points. If he does that in the next 5 arrows, so gets 2 9s from Lutz and he stays in the 10, that last arrow is going to be a nervy one for the pair of them.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, not everything is off the table just yet for JP Boulch.
Rather be in Lutz's shoes, of course. I think that's what you were suggesting. And well, 1 arrow can make such a big difference in this sport. It doesn't affect recurve archers, perhaps, to the extent that it affects a compounder.
Yeah, not as much, since you shoot a set system with recurve archery, so you have 3 arrows per set. If JP were a recurve archer, that was a good look at that 6. There was definitely some movement before the shot went off. If you're a recurve shooter, you can shoot a 6, and then just the next set you'll just start on 0 again, so you can recover quite easily. That's not so much the case with compound archery, where the score is cumulative and it will just be 15 arrows counted up.
Well, here we go. End number 4. Boulch has got 1 of the 4-point deficit back in the last end. He needs to keep up that momentum to give himself a chance. In this semi-final, a 10 is a good start.
Yeah, and in all fairness, besides that 6 that he shot, his group is actually quite a lot smaller than the group that James Lutz is shooting.
Well, if it was a lapse of concentration that produced that 6, you can see he's back in the groove here, JP Boulch. that first arrow from Lutz marked for a measure, but I can see some clear yellow between that and the line.
Yeah, the target's not completely tight on the target, but so ooh, that's another one of those slip-ups. Yeah, he managed to keep this one in the goal, but definitely something happening on the release end of his shot.
Yeah, that's going to play on your mind, isn't it? So, provisional 29 for Lutz. We think that's going to stay as a 29 and a 3-point lead for Lutz going into the last 3 arrows. This is tricky moments for JP Boulch, but very happy moments for Jimmy Lutz. What's it like when you're standing on the other side of the line and you see an athlete make such an error that you wouldn't expect to happen? Do you start to feel for them, or are you just thinking, well, there you go, there's an opportunity for me?
Well, I've never been so compassionate about my opponent that I thought, oh, that's bad for them. I've always thought, like, oh, that's good for me. So in that sense, if they're a little bit like me, if James is a little bit like me, he'll think, ah, this breeds some opportunity.
Ruthless, absolutely. Well, and that's what top sports people need, and that's why Chef Vandenberg is and forever will be an Olympian. But it is an interesting dynamic. You see some of the athletes that do show compassion to their athletes, but they're still ruthless in their execution and their performance.
Yeah, obviously, I have also had moments of compassion for my competitors, but it's if you're in a 1v1 match and something like this happens to your opponent, I think there's no way that you think like, oh, too bad for them. I think you're always going to be happy that you're going to take the lead.
Start of the 5th, and Boulch needs a bit of a miracle here. All he can do is just put down 10s and hope for a slip up from Lutz, which at the moment does not seem at all likely.
Yeah, we have seen the slip up from Lutz earlier today, but I think that was when he was pressed for time, and that's not the case right now.
Yep. Yes.
Looking very solid indeed, the American. So finishing with a strong 29 for a 1-4-3, but the caption says it all.
Yep, there it is.
A perfect finish for Jimmy Lutz. What a way to finish things off after an error from your opponent opens the door. Well, you can't do anything about a perfect 30. And a 147 for Jimmy Lutz is a great score for the American. It's a nightmare scenario for Nico Wiener. He's got the 2 athletes that he did not want in the final here. Lutz will face Becerra, and that looks like it may well be the end of Nico Wiener from Austria's opportunity to go to the Hyundai Archery World Cup final in Mexico.
Yeah, if our math is correct, this was the death blow to Nico Wiener's wish to get to the World Cup final this year. So, and I think I saw him pack his backpack a bit. So I don't know if he's going to sit and wait out for the rest of the finals, but